Have you ever missed someone who doesn't even exist? How did that happen? You ever have a super lonely period of your life and you dream you have a partner? Like they're flirty and fun and you guys are in just a normal relationship? Sometimes I dream about this girl and when I wake up I miss her so much. Of course after like a minute of waking up I snap out of it, but for those first 10 or so seconds of waking up I am truly heartbroken because I felt a real connection to another human being for once only to realize it was all fake. I'm not particularly lonely in my waking life. Well, obviously I'm a little lonely at least on a subconscious level, but the dream loneliness hits extra hard. Dream emotions are so intense. They dredge up all that small stuff and amplify it 1,000-fold. I think it's great, even if it's sad and you feel hollow when you wake up, because it helps give you perspective on what you want in someone else, or something you're missing in life at least. I was catfished. She was perfect, then found out it was a crazy ex with a year-long play. If only she showed that dedication when we were together. Oh man, I'm sorry that happened. A year-long catfish by your ex can def frick with your head. Not a person, but I deeply miss some places I've been to in my dreams, and sometimes some elements of them turn up randomly and nostalgia hits. Pretty bad knowing such a place does not exist and you can only find comfort in memories of it. These types of dreams usually led to me starting a book with that dream as a setting. I didn't say I ever finished the books, but that's another thing. My father was arrested 7 days before my second birthday. He pleaded no contest to 3 charges and served their respective 3-year terms concurrently even though he deserved to be in prison for much longer. He had a supervised visitation when I was 5 and made it clear that he was disappointed in me. Growing up, I alternated between viewing him as a nearly supernaturally powerful monster and someone whose love I craved, even if it meant being abused. I met him when I was 19 and realized that he was just a sad, old man that did horrible things because he only cared about himself. When I was 24, I learned that he died from cancer. I couldn't understand why I had such a strong sense of loss. Over time, I realized that I was grieving the father I had always longed to have, the man my father could have been. His death removed any ambiguity. He wasn't going to magically transform into that ideal image. He was dead, and the version of him I had been holding out hope for was never alive. He blamed everything he did on his upbringing and the trauma he experienced. Trauma he revisited on his wife and his own children. I have a wife and a young daughter. I always knew his excuses were a sham. I have experimental evidence of that now. I've had an internet best friend for like 25 years, who I never met. She disappeared at one point for like 2 years, and this was a long time ago and virtual relationships of any kind didn't really exist. So if I told people the reactions I got were literally "you're a loser" up to "she doesn't even really exist," it makes you wonder what exists really means anymore. Yeah, I did write a novel once for fun and killed off one of my main characters halfway through and started missing her quite a bit in the second half of the book. It's weird how characters you basically pulled out of your butt can grow on you. If it were a TV soap opera, you can bring them back claiming they faked their death and were secretly hiding in the Andes Mountains plotting their revenge against the person who killed their father, who wasn't really his father, but that's a story for another time. When I was young, I had an imaginary older brother. I didn't play with him, but I wrote him letters. As I grew older, I would write "Dear Jamie" letters to relieve some stress or something. I'd write about school, about friendship stresses. I had grown up feeling like there was a brother-shaped hole in my life. I remember writing about that. It didn't make sense. I couldn't have had an older brother. My family would not have forgotten about a whole child. But I missed him. I felt his absence. I was 18 when my parents told me that I'd had an older brother, but he had been stillborn due to spina bifida complications. They had kept him a secret from us. Due to the pain of his loss, he never got a name, but James had been on the top of their list. My parents had always been startled and made uncomfortable by my letter writing to Jamie. To this day, I still miss Jamie. I guess he did technically exist in some way, but he had been gone 6 years before I was even born. Met her in a dream. I knew I was dreaming. The girl my mind made up knew it was a dream. We connected, shared the moment and wanted to be in the dream forever. We took care of each other, snuggled and just chilled after a while. Eventually she just sort of faded away and I knew I was about to wake up. Woke up with a wet pillow and thought it was sad that I'd have a dream like this, but kind of beautiful too. Taught me a little about living in the moment. That's beautiful. Always have very vivid dreams. One time I dreamed I was pregnant and it felt surreal. Sometimes it dawns on me that this might be a dream, but not then. It was so vivid and detailed and such a long dream. I was pregnant with a healthy baby girl. Had a boyfriend and enough money to support a small family. Everyone was congratulating me. Everything was perfect. Then I woke up. No baby, no boyfriend. Alone in my bed at 3 AM. My arms outstretched to hug someone. Just really I was hugging empty space. My flat stomach where my belly was supposed to be. My baby girl gone. It was devastating. Never cried so bad in my life. Dream haunted me for weeks. Tiniest things almost made me cry for 3 days. Dang you brain. Sometimes I still miss the personality that my ex made up to cover up the violent, sociopathic serial abuser underneath. When I was around 10 years old I cried for weeks after I decided to say goodbye to my imaginary friend. Growing up as a child I could not make friends. Autism is a B, so I just made up someone I could talk to in my head. It was much like you would imagine a conversation between a ventriloquist and his dummy would go. But thinking back that was a necessary crutch to help me put my thoughts in order and to reason things out, as well as to keep myself company. That's a very capable 10-year to have the understanding that you have to say goodbye to your imaginary friend, that real life in general must have its place. Maybe you could write a children's book honoring your imaginary friend who got you through. I'd read it. I once had a dream where I was with this girl, and I remember the feeling of being madly in love with this girl. Spent an odd night together, then woke up and couldn't even comprehend life for a bit. For weeks I actually felt kinda heartbroken and lost because I literally felt like I lost a loved one. No name, no face, fire truck red hair. I missed my invisible best friend when we had to move because CPS came to check on my living conditions and mom grabbed me and bailed states. Turns out after I was an adult and had moved back to that area for about 30 years my co-worker and best friend was that same little boy who I had thought was invisible, and he had gone to his mom with his worries about me when we were children. He still remembered saving half of his meals in a doggy bag to feed me, taking his books from home for me to read and learn from and gifting me his outgrown clothes. That kid sounds like a son. I was and probably still am in love with my middle school best friend. That person is dead now, though, and doesn't exist anymore. Not literally dead, but not the person they used to be. The sands of time conquer all, I suppose. Oof, I felt that. Hopefully it gets better as time goes on, or at least you think about them less and less. I dreamt I had a baby daughter. Waking up and realizing I would never have the chance to see that little precious bundle grow up hurts like a mother, still does. We have a popular birthday song in Germany where the chorus translates to, "How great that you have been born. Otherwise we would have missed you very much." People often make fun about this because it doesn't seem to make sense. I think it makes perfect sense. My husband and I had 3 miscarriages. While today we are living a great childless life, we still miss Lily, Paige and Ben and the life we would have lived had things turned out differently. I lost my Ben at 29 weeks in April. I hope our Bens are happy, wherever they are. Much love to you. 3. I missed my friend who was only hanging around with me because he wanted to screw me. 7 years of his company and enjoying our shared hobby, which distracted me from my sadness after losing my husband 5 years ago. Then he told me he always wanted to frick me and proposed me being his FWB behind his girlfriend's back. He even told me he wasn't into our hobby. He was only doing it because he thought it was his way into my pants. Rude, so I miss him. The friend I thought I had, but who turned out to be almost entirely fictional. That is really sad, and 7 years with a hobby just to try to get in someone's pants. Whoa. I made a really lovely friend in a dream named Jewel. We had a really lovely day where we took a boat day tripping and it was just so much fun. He was smart and funny and kind, with a really dumb hat and big round open face. In real life I have wonderful, incredible friends. I am extremely lucky, but when I woke up it took me a couple minutes to realize that Jewel isn't one of them. and I missed him so much in the same way I miss real friends I have lost over the years. A very long and vibrant dream about being pregnant, giving birth, and taking my son home. I can still tell you what he smells like. He doesn't exist. I mourned him as I woke and realized it was all a dream. It was awful, but no real long-term effects. We were getting ready to leave for vacation and I turned around to call for our second kid. Except we only have one kid. I stood there for a minute confused. I saw his face in my mind. His name was on the tip of my tongue, but he didn't exist. Interestingly enough, a few years earlier we were considering foster adopting but the place closed. It made me wonder if that's who I was missing. You got too close to the other dimensions. They may not exist anymore, but I think they once did. When my ex and I first got together, he was so sweet and kind. He always made time for me, played with my hair, did the forehead touchy thing, where you both lean in and touch your foreheads together, and nothing else in the world matters. That thing. And would softly kiss my hand and or forehead whilst I slept. He talked to me often, told me when he missed me, loved me, took me on adventures, and built a world that was worth living every moment in. But it stopped, slowly but surely. Then, when he was breaking up with me, he all but admitted that it was an act, a lie, and that he just couldn't do it anymore. I miss that guy though, because while it was a lie, for a moment it was the most beautiful one I was ever told. This one hits hard. Recent ex of 4 years gave me the world, and suddenly decided he wasn't that person anymore and became horrible to me instead. I lived in an amazing lie, though. When I was sick with COVID I had horrible fevers and would have vivid dreams. I lived out an entire life with my partner and kids. My real children were my dream kids as well. It was my partner that was a dream. Getting over the dreams when I was over the fever was like the most brutal breakup ever. I cried because I missed him so much. I had to do it in secret as they wouldn't understand since it was all just a dream. I had a dream I was dating someone who was very handsome. He took me to a water park and even took pictures of us together. He held my hand on scary rides. He called me beautiful and gorgeous. Not hot or sexy. He never looked at other more beautiful women. Just me. And I was very happy. Then, I woke up and was pretty upset the entire day. It felt like I lost a part of me. Fast forward a few days later, I bump into my neighbor. He looks identical to the boy in my dream. Him and I have known each other since the day I moved into the neighborhood. We go to the same school in the same grade, and we always had a love-hate relationship. Anyways, we began dating a couple days after we began hanging out again. 1 month strong. At least one of us found our happy ever going. I had an awesome day with my children. Boy 6, girl 7. We said goodbye to the wife in the morning and I took them jet skiing to this sandbank island thing that's only there low tide. It was sunny and a magical day and we made lots of memories building sandcastles and just having an awesome time. The bond we had was incredible. After a great day I woke up in my bed, 19 years old and realizing it was just a dream. I was shattered because it felt so real and it felt like I had known them for a long time. I know it sounds fricked up but part of me still thinks about that daydream I had with them and misses them. Also I have never jet skied before. I met someone in a dream who comforted me as much as they could, and in return I did the same to them. We got close for some reason. I asked him if I would be okay, and he said, "You will. It seems that nobody loves you now, but I will always be in your head, therefore I am always with you. I love you." We hugged each other. Then he faded away and I woke up. This is so nice, and made me cry. I've told this story before, but when I was about 18 I had a dream that lasted 5 years. In the dream, real time was just a night of sleep. I lived every day. I went to school, went to work, hung out with friends, fell in love, got married, and had a child. The girl I fell in love with was just a random acquaintance that I never had any real interactions with and had barely thought about prior to that dream. It's now 22 years later and I see her occasionally at a bar that I will sometimes go to where she bartends. I can't even look at her. My fictional son was the thing that really fricked with me. It felt like I lost a child, and for many years I would occasionally have thoughts about him. The funny thing is that many of the things I did during raising him in my dream has helped guide me as I raise my child now. Mistakes I made, lessons I learned, etc. stayed in my mind, even though that mind was just an 18-year-old kid who didn't know anything about raising a baby. It took me multiple years to get over it, and for probably at least 5 or 6 years after that, I'd have moments in my life that I thought were real but were actually part of that dream. Very few people believe me about this, and many think I just had a dream with some highlights of moments. But it was literally 24/7/365 of living that life in the dream, even going to bed and waking up the next morning. This is crazy. If this is true, I'm sorry for you. I met this girl. She was a delight, fun and smart and caring. Didn't want kids, which is a plus in my book. Anyways, we got married, moved to England. I'm not sure why we did this, and lived a nice happy life going on vacations and crap. Then I woke up, very confused. I miss the functioning adult I should have been. I try my best every day, but it need a lifetime of efforts just to reach the point where most young adults start, and it's depressing. I'm not sure about the result neither, but it's my job to go as far as possible. Yay. My ex faked an entire personality and identity for over a year. Anytime I begin to miss her, I have to remind myself that the woman I miss didn't really exist. This same goes for anyone who has gone through an abusive relationship. The one you miss is a completely different person than the butthole they actually were. If only they weren't so good at persuading us otherwise. There was once I had a dream where I was in a neighborhood that I very much didn't recognize in a body that was not my own. I ended up going on a walk with a woman who I didn't know but had the feeling I was in love with. Her toddler son was in between us, and we were both holding one of his hands, doing that thing where every few steps we'd lift him up. He was laughing and I felt happy, but was sad because I had the biggest inkling that it was a dream. As I remembered more concrete details of my actual life, the woman looks at me and asks, "You're not from this reality, are you?" I said no, and told her about a bit of my life. My life as a college student and my partner who I'd be waking up next to soon. The woman smiled but started crying. She said that once I wake up, I'll be gone and she'll miss me. She also said to cherish and take care of my partner, something that stuck with me the most from this dream. We silently finish our walk and I woke up crying. It very much still bothers me to this day that I don't remember her name or what she looks like. I fell asleep to Friends every single night for like 4 years straight, and whenever I missed a night or couldn't watch, I literally missed my Friends meant in the least pathetic way possible. The show and its characters really gave me a feeling familiarity and security. That felt good. I started getting into Gilmore Girls a couple of weeks ago. I have a major feeling once I have finished I will feel the same way. Yeah, Friends did that to you. I remember watching the final series first time around, and even though that series was pretty bad overall, that final scene when they were all standing in the empty apartment ready to leave, it was almost like you were saying goodbye to real friends. Iron Man. To this day it feels just the slightest bit surreal and weird to see an interview or podcast with Robert Downey Jr. 3000. Since about 5th grade I have had dreams about this girl. Every year between 4 or 5 times a year I have a different dream about her. Same body, hair, mannerisms, etc. But I have never seen her face in these dreams. We are always doing something, and then right as I am about to see her face I wake up. She has seemed to grow up as I have as well. I have had dreams that seem to last very long and some only an instant about her, but I have never met her. However, I miss and love her for some reason. I don't why this happens or what it is trying to tell me, but it is consistently a part of my life. Similar experience with a boy that's grown up with me in dreams. I'm in my mid-20s now and it's been going on since I was pretty young. It's pretty wild and heartbreaking. The dreams are usually extremely vivid. Weird experience, but I do think he's probably a real person out there living his life. Years ago I had a dream where I met someone and we traveled the world together for about a year. It was the most incredible year of my life and it never happened. I repeatedly have dreams of holding somebody. Literally nobody in particular, but it's the warmest, Most safe feeling I've ever had, and multiple times now, I've woken up and reached my arm over to hold them, only to remember I was dreaming and I never had anyone to hold. I once had recurring dreams about being secluded with a voluptuous mermaid behind a cascading waterfall. It felt like those dreams would never end, but they did, and she vanished with them. This is really stupid and embarrassing, so I'll probably delete, but I'm going to comment anyway. When I was a kid, my mother and I enjoyed talking about various spiritual beliefs and religions. I became very interested in Christianity as a child, but I also became really interested in the concept of a spirit guide. I decided I would name my spirit guide and her name was Gloria. I've throughout my life experienced these strange sensations before falling asleep, forgot the name for it, and the most common feeling was that of someone gently sitting on the end of my bed. I think telling myself it was someone looking out for me, and not a scary ghost, made it easier for me to sleep at night. I'd talk to her too sometimes when I was sad, and it was comforting. I always pictured her as a grandmotherly figure, so I guess she was basically an imaginary friend. But it felt more spiritual, I guess. As a kid, I was terrified of death and thought about the concept of heaven and heck pretty often. So the concept of a spirit guiding me in life was comforting. A bit of a tangential story OP. About 6 years ago, I met someone online. Let's call her Jemima V. This girl was thoughtful, creative, witty and intriguing. She was a complicated character, and I felt this strange affinity for her. The catch is we never met. A bit of a you've got mail situation. That never came to fruition. I can blame it on youthful naivety now, and it sounds a bit sad in hindsight, but honestly I got quite lost in this person. Shamefully at the expense of a real relationship that I'd been in for quite a significant period of time. Me and Jay, ended up growing apart as both of us went our own way in the world. Though I've been in a few relationships since, I can honestly say that this person who I never truly met has arguably shaped my taste in partners. A whole array of things tbh, more than some of the girls I've held in my arms. And whenever a period of quiet descends on my life, like now with COVID, I find myself wondering endlessly what if, longing for a message to pop up in my inbox. Why do I post this here? Well, as I've matured, I've come to the conclusion that the girl I miss, the girl I wanted doesn't really exist. I projected so much onto you, Jemima, for better or worse. You are a bright fiction burning in my mind, a fantasy I can wander into to escape from the mundane reality we are all confronted with at times. I saw your work on the cover of a magazine while roaming the streets of northern England, and I believe you're an artisan somewhere in Europe. I'm proud of what you've accomplished. I really hope you're well, and if you ever stumble across this post, I'd love to get to know the real you. Had a period of intense depression, and coped by basically blocking out the world and just playing The Sims. I usually only build houses, but this time I went all in on living their lives. Made a family based on my favorite fictional characters at the time, and they had a baby. I'd never had a baby in The Sims before, and God, I poured everything I had into this family. Thought about them anytime I wasn't playing. Crafted their world down to the smallest detail. Then my laptop died, and my dumb butt never made a backup. I lost everything. And I know it's dumb as heck, but I was a broken man for weeks. Mourned that stupid fake family as if I had lost a real flesh and blood child. Took me years before I could play the game again, and I'm careful now to not let myself slip so deeply into it. Even now, if a sim is interacting with a toddler, I get this horrible empty ache in my chest for a second. Even though I know it's just a bunch of pixels. Eventually just stopped playing again. I've had dreams of people I've never met. I wake up and they're gone, like pulling the plug on an old TV. Slowly I think less of them and the hurt fades. I still miss some of them. The entire cast of Parks and Recreation. Those characters are so well rounded, and throughout the course of the show we got to see them grow and change and take such memorable character arcs. I miss those guys. Every time I'm sad, or anxious, or depressed, I start rewatching Parks and Rec. Thanks to 2020, it's basically on a loop now, 24/7. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.